I was running along a coastal bike path not far from our hotel when I spotted what looked like some side door to a castle. We had mainly flown into Oslo to do another international parkrun. I find it a bit funny that I was off on a bit of a shakeout run after the flight before checking out what all the tourist attractions were in the town. I had a bit of spare time and it was such a nice day that I thought I could squeeze a quick look around this medieval-looking castle. I don't know, but these cannons look a bit Spanish to me. I suppose everyone in Europe had them at the time. The fortress has been both a royal residence and defense castle over the years. This place would have seen a lot of history since it started being constructed around the 13th century. There was tours inside as well as a museum, but I didn't feel I had enough time to check it all out. Oslo has a pass that includes most of museums and buildings in town, which look like good value if you wanted to see them all. Reading a few of the signboards helps get a bit of a feeling of the places we visited. Each have a long story, it's pretty hard to remember it all when you're moving fast. We have seen the Oslo Opera House on many YouTube clips. It was even more impressive in real life. The Italian white marble from Carrara was so bright on a very sunny day. It sort of rose like an iceberg out of the bay. They reckon it gets covered in ice and snow in winter. It would be fun to ski or slide down. It reminds me a bit of the Sydney Opera House back home. The shape is completely different, but in a prominent position right on the water makes it very similar. I like the look of the Sydney Opera House better. Maybe I am a little biased, but I love the fact that you could easily walk to the top of this one in Oslo and get a great view all over the city. We did not go inside, but I could have easily enjoyed walking to the viewing points on its roofline every day we were there. It was a pretty busy place with international tourists from many different countries photographing the sculptures on the mirrored glass walls. Oslo was great, modern, and an interesting place to explore for a couple of days. I had been there before, 30 years ago on a youth Euro rail pass, but did not really rate it back then. To be fair, it was the middle of winter last time and I would have been just staying in youth hostels or backpacker places. It was a lot more expensive than I remember, but there are not many cheap places left nowadays. It was interesting to compare my old cheap train travels with today's budget airlines. Last time I was just visiting places to have a look around somewhere different. This time we were adding one more new parkrun country before heading home. The train from the airport to the middle of town was super fast and comfortable, so fast it was hard to take a photo out of the window. Just like when I traveled all those years ago, we don't spend a lot of money doing all the tourist things. We usually find there is more than enough free stuff to keep us thoroughly entertained. I was tempted to visit a museum and see some Viking stuff, but in the end we saw enough to satisfy my curiosity about my possible small bit of Viking ancestry, just walking around and seeing the old sword display at the airport on the way out. So parkrun was on top of that hill, not too far out of town. Not impossible to walk or run to the start as a warm-up, but it felt much kinder on our bodies after all the tourists walking around town just to catch the bus. We needed to buy a ticket in a transport shop the day before we boarded. As usual, we double-checked the timetable and bus stops to make sure everything went smoothly. There were a handful of other parkrun tourists on the bus as well. It was not long before we were comparing our parkrun stats with other people on the bus ride up. Usually our parkrun stats are quite high, but parkrun in the United Kingdom has been going a lot longer than Australia, and they have a lot more closer options than we do. So we get blown away by the sheer amount of running and travelling some other people have done. This parkrun was a pretty flat 2-lap course around a big sporting field complex. I was thinking it would be a faster time for me, but all the tourist walking and sightseeing seems to take the edge off my running. We had coffee afterwards with the run director while he was uploading the results. There was a bit of a forest walk nearby, before we heading back to town on a tram. We had 1 day spare on our short 3-week, 4-country, 5 parkrun event trip mid-June 2025. We were back in Copenhagen, Denmark, where we started from, just trying to take it easy before the long flight home. We had already had a pretty good look around Copenhagen and were wondering what else we could easily visit. Another country seemed out of the question because in Australia another country is so very far away, but in this part of the world it can just be a short train ride. There is this cool bridge that goes all the way from Denmark to Sweden. I remember watching an international TV show on SBS channel in Australia. The bridge featured heavily in a few of the crime mystery shows. For about $40 Australian or 200 DKK, we could get a return ticket to Malmö, Sweden. Malmö is pretty famous in our parkrunning circles, as you used to be able to do an easy double on special events days, but unfortunately Malmö was getting swamped with parkrun tourists and it has now stopped running special events. We might not be able to do the parkrun on this trip, but we could do a train ride on this famous bridge and have a walk around town.